In this world, every soul exists between two grinding stones: joy and sorrow, gain and loss, love and hate. Saint Kabir witnessed this eternal dance and wept, saying, "Between the grinding stones of life, no grain remains whole." Yet, he revealed a profound secret. Those who rest near the pivot of God remain untouched. This is the essence of his wisdom: how to navigate life's ceaseless motion while staying unmoved within. From the weight of the world's opposites, Kabir guides us toward freedom. The freedom of the soul that acts yet remains the witness. In this satsang, we explore Kabir's timeless teachings, from the mystery of food as divine energy to stories of Ramana Maharshi, Osho, and Seneca. Each story reveals that when we are centered in God, no suffering can reach us. This is Between the Grinding Stones of Life, Saint Kabir's teachings on duality, freedom, and the true self. A gentle reminder that only in stillness, at the center of the heart, do we find true liberation.
This satsang is on the couplets of Saint Kabir. The first couplet is, "चलती चक्की देख के दिया कबीरा रोए, दो पाटन के बीच में साबत बचाना कोए." Its simple meaning is, just as grains caught between the grinding stones are crushed, so is the soul caught between worldly dualities. But the one who rests near the pivot, fixed on God, remains safe. The second couplet is, "Nirbandhan bandha rahe banda nirbandh hoye, कर्म करे करता नहीं दास कहावे सोए." It means, though living in the body's bondage, the wise remain free in spirit. Actions happen through the body, but they know, "I am not the doer, I am the self." Such a one is truly God's servant. As Saint Kabir says, "Chalti chakki dekh ke diya kabira roe," when he saw the grinding mill, there were two stones, one above and one below. The upper stone moves while the lower one remains steady. When a grain of wheat falls between them, it gets caught and crushed, turning into flour. Between these two grinding stones, not a single grain remains whole. But near the pivot, the central axis around which the upper stone rotates, there is a small space. If a grain happens to fall there, it does not get crushed between the stones, it remains safe. Similarly, the one who holds himself near the axis of God, the divine center, is saved from the crushing pain of the moving mill of the world. Those who rest in God do not suffer the grinding sorrow of worldly existence. However, only a few grains come into that safe space. From a spiritual point of view, those grains are like souls whom God Himself places near Him. All the great masters who have ever walked this earth, whether it was Buddha, Mahavir, Jesus Christ, or Guru Nanak, they all remained near this divine center. It was the elevated state of their previous births that kept them fixed in God's axis. They did not allow themselves to be caught in worldly sufferings and thus became lights for the world, showing the path of divine truth. Ordinary people, however, get crushed between the two stones. But if the grains were not crushed, there would be no flower, and life itself could not continue. The grinding of the grain is what sustains both life and the world. Those who, while being crushed in life's mill, understand that their pain is given by God to elevate them to a higher state, such people rise above suffering. They do not see pain as pain, they see it as a step towards evolution. Such souls, with simplicity and surrender, come to realize God, just as Buddha, Mahavir, Raman Maharshi, and Jesus Christ did. And the grains that do get ground become flour. That flour is food, and food itself is a form of Brahman, of God. That is why food is called Brahma, the divine. Why do we call food God? Because the word Bhagwan or God itself is made up of 4 syllables, Bha, Ga, Va, and Na. Bha means Bhumi, the earth. Food comes from the earth, it is the essence of soil. Ga means Gagan, the sky. The cosmic energy of the universe also resides within each grain. That is why food is called Brahman. Va represents Vayu, the air. Air, too, is a manifestation of the divine. For the growth of food, air is essential, just as earth and the power of the cosmos are. Na stands for Neer, water. So within food or within God exist all 4 elements, earth, sky, air, and water. Therefore, when we worship food, we are in truth worshipping God. Worshipping food is the same as worshipping Brahma. When food is ground, only its form changes, but its essence remains divine. When we consume food, it gives us energy, and the giver of that energy is the Supreme. It was through this divine energy in food that Meera attained realization of God. When she was given a cup of poison, the divine power within her, the Brahman in the form of food, neutralized the effect of the poison completely. When they tried to kill her by hiding a snake in a basket of flowers, that same divine power transformed the snake into flowers. Food, when understood as Brahman, acts as nectar. If you take it as the power of God entering your being, and with that awareness allow it to nurture your inner strength, you will awaken your consciousness. By the development of this divine energy through food, a person gains such strength that he becomes capable of expanding his consciousness to reach the vastness of the universe itself. In this world, whatever development you see around you, the vast factories, the tall buildings, the grand temples of God, if you perceive it deeply and subtly, you will realize that all of this has been created through the power of food. Food is Brahman. Food is God. It is God Himself who, having manifested within human beings as strength, has brought forth this entire creation. Therefore, the entire universe, this whole world, is nothing but the form of the divine. Just as the Lord resides within us in subtle form, He also exists outside us in His vast and expanded form as the universe. But if, while living in this world, your mind remains filled with impurities, lust, anger, greed, attachment, and pride, then this same divine power of food within you can take on the influence of demonic energy. There was once a photographer who had a deep desire to capture in his camera the image of a person through whose eyes God could be seen, someone whose gaze reflected innocence and divinity. After much effort, he finally found a 12-year-old boy whose eyes shone with that divine presence. When he looked into those eyes, he felt he was seeing the very form of God. He took the boy's photograph, enlarged it, and shared it with the world. People everywhere were moved by it. They said it was as if he had captured God himself in human form. He displayed that photograph in his home, and it was also published in magazines. The world praised him for portraying divinity in the form of a human being. Years passed. Then one day, a thought arose in his mind. Just as I once photographed the image of God in a child's face, I now wish to capture the image of the devil in a man's face, so that people can see both what divinity looks like and what evil looks like. For years he searched for such a person, but nowhere could he find someone who completely embodied wickedness. Then he thought, perhaps such a person cannot be found freely in the world. Maybe I will find one among criminals in a prison. Inspired by this idea, he began visiting prisons. Yet even there he could not find anyone whose face truly reflected complete evil. Finally, he reached a prison where the inmates were those sentenced to death. With permission from the authorities, he entered the cell block. There, he saw one prisoner whose face seemed to be the very image of the devil itself. The photographer could hardly bear to look at him, there was such darkness and cruelty in that man's eyes. He wished to photograph him, but the jailer said, "You cannot take his picture without his consent." So the photographer went up to the bars. The prisoner was on one side, he was on the other. He humbly requested, "I wish to take your photograph." The prisoner asked, "Why do you want to take my picture?" The photographer explained his intent, how he had once captured the image of innocence and divinity in a young boy and now wished to capture the image of evil to show the contrast between God and the devil. Hearing this, the prisoner was silent for a moment, then said, "I will allow you to take my picture, but on one condition. Show me the photograph in which you had captured the divine image of God." That very photograph was in the photographer's bag. He took it out and showed it to the prisoner. The prisoner gazed at it steadily, without blinking, for a long time. He kept staring, and soon tears began to flow from his eyes. Then he said softly, "Look closely at this beautiful child. This is me. This is my own childhood picture." The photographer was stunned. He compared the photo carefully, and yes, it was true. The same boy whose picture he had taken years ago, the same innocent face, had now turned into the face of this condemned man. He took the prisoner's photograph, but his mind was deeply shaken. How could the form of God turn into the form of the devil? That one revelation filled him with silence and wonder. How divine innocence, when lost to the world's darkness, could transform into something demonic. The purpose of this true story is only this: if you exist as a divine being, as a manifestation of God, yet due to various causes, your company, your food, your actions, your thoughts, your life can also take the form of demonic energy. And that transformation can be so extreme that your original divine nature can turn completely 180 degrees opposite. This is what happened in that story. Even when a person lives on food that is Brahman, through their thoughts, their consciousness, and their actions, they can make themselves so toxic that they become the most evil person in the world. All this is possible. Just as through food one can become like Meera and realize God, through the same food one can also become hateful and corrupt. You must have heard the name Chandragupta Maurya. He was made the emperor of all India by Chanakya. Through tireless effort, Chanakya helped him develop the Indian kingdom in every way. Chanakya always feared that enemies might kill Chandragupta Maurya, so he remained constantly alert. Even the food served to Chandragupta Maurya was first tasted by 4 others before reaching him. But not only that, Chanakya would also mix small doses of poison in Chandragupta Maurya's food. He did this intentionally, thinking that if any enemy ever tried to poison him, his body would have already developed resistance. He even slept in different rooms every night for security. One day, however, a mistake occurred. Chandragupta's wife, who was pregnant at the time, accidentally ate his food. When Chanakya realized this, he knew she would die because the food contained poison. But she was carrying Chandragupta's child in her womb. In an attempt to save the unborn child, Chanakya immediately cut open her stomach with his sword and took the baby out. Still, a trace of the poison left a mark on the baby's forehead. That child was named Bindusara, and later he became the ruler after Chandragupta. Some years later, a great famine struck Patliputra. Chandragupta Maurya distributed all his wealth to the people so they could survive in happiness. But afterward, he became deeply disheartened with worldly life. By divine grace, a thought arose in his heart. Before dying, he wanted to realize God. He renounced his entire kingdom, all his royal comforts, and devoted himself to the path of God. This was the effect of pure food, the sacred Brahman in food. Through this divine influence, his mind turned towards spirituality. He came into contact with a great Jain monk, took initiation, and went to the sacred place in Kerala near Shravanbelgola, where stands the magnificent statue of Lord Mahavir. In a cave near there, he performed great penance. Following Jain principles, he lived without food for many days, purified his body completely, and finally attained Kaivalya, the supreme liberation. This was the result of eating pure food and living a pure life, that a mighty emperor renounced his kingdom and became one with God. On the other hand, those who do not live rightly, who allow their minds to become impure, can ultimately turn into demonic beings. In the end, we all eat the same food, yet the effect depends on consciousness. When consciousness is filled with divine awareness, the same food helps one become Brahman, the embodiment of God. When the consciousness is filled with darkness, that same energy can turn demonic. Saint Kabir's second verse says, Nirbandhan bandha rahe, bandha nirbandh hoye, karm kare karta nahi, das kahave soye. The meaning is, the one who is truly free within remains unbound even while living in the body. The soul that dwells within us does not live in bondage. Though residing in the body, it remains free, untouched. It does nothing by itself, it only remains as a witness, ever surrendered at the feet of the Lord. This witnessing self, this Atman, has been experienced by great philosophers and realized masters. Immanuel Kant, the great Western philosopher, realized that there exists within us a supreme inner power, the spiritual force. Socrates, by drinking poison, demonstrated that even when the body perishes, the soul remains. Awareness continues to exist, and only when the soul departs does a person truly leave the world. But Raman Maharshi directly experienced this truth. He did not just speak about it, he lived it. Through his own life, he proved how this self, the eternal witness, can be experienced within. When Raman Maharshi was 15 years old, his father passed away. At the time of his father's death, the body was lying in the house. He was deeply surprised. The body was exactly the same, so what had happened to it? The last rites of his father were performed. The next day, in the same room where his father's body had been kept, Raman closed the door, lay down on the floor, covered himself with a sheet, and became still, completely silent within. He then experienced a strange phenomenon. A power began to move out from his hands and his body. That energy rose and left through his Sahasrara chakra or crown center. Yet, he was fully aware that he was still alive. For a while, he observed his own body from outside, through that consciousness which had separated from it. After some time, when a fly or mosquito came near his body, that same spiritual power, the soul, re-entered his physical form. This experience lasted only 5 to 10 minutes, but it completely transformed his life. He realized that the inner power within us, the soul, leaves the body, yet the body remains as it is. After that day, he gave up reading and writing. He would sit silently for hours in one place. Eventually, he felt an inner calling that there was a divine energy at Arunachala mountain. Telling his brother, he set out towards Arunachala. After traveling part of the way by bus and walking the remaining days on foot, he finally reached Arunachala mountain. The moment he arrived, he felt, "This is my place." He stayed there for many days. Gradually, people began to recognize him as a young saint. Over time, that young seeker came to be known as Raman Maharshi. This awakening was only the realization of his soul, something he could not express in words. But through his eyes, his silent presence, and his hours of deep stillness, it became evident that he was one with the Supreme, one with his own soul. He would often leave awareness of his body and move in the vastness of his soul. Once, a devotee asked him, "When you leave your body, what will happen to all of us?" Raman Maharshi replied, "I will remain here. I will stay with you." But the devotees could not understand. In time, when wisdom dawned in others, they realized the truth of his words, and saw him as a living embodiment of the divine. A similar event happened with Osho. He used to meditate sitting high on a tree. Once, while meditating, his soul remained on the tree and his body fell to the ground. A woman who saw this went near him, and the moment she touched his body, his soul re-entered it. Such phenomena occur only with great beings. There was also a great philosopher in Italy named Seneca. He trained his disciple so well that the disciple later became a king. But his nature was not pure. Once he became the ruler, he abandoned Seneca's teachings and, in arrogance, ordered his soldiers to kill his own master. In those times, death was often given by cutting the veins of the hand. Seneca was 90 years old. His veins were cut, but no blood came out. He remained alive, fully conscious. He stayed in oneness with his soul. Then he was given the same poison that had been given to Socrates, but it had no effect on his awareness. Everyone was astonished. Finally, when hot water was poured on his body, his blood began to flow, and gently, while still in a state of awareness, his soul left his body. The one who lives in union with his soul is never bound by the body. Whether the soul stays within or moves beyond, both are under his conscious control. Such a person acts in the world but remains untouched by action, seeing himself only as a servant of the divine. Through this awareness, he attains the highest state, self-realization. That is why Lord Krishna said, "I am the doer of all actions in this world." You, as the soul, simply witness what is happening. Only then can you attain the supreme state. Surrender to the divine. Saint Kabir also said the same, "The actions are done, but it is God Himself who acts through all." The soul itself does nothing, it only witnesses the Supreme Soul and receives all its power from that. The soul becomes one with God, and through that union, it becomes present everywhere in the universe, just as God pervades all. Only that which is empty, the pure void, can pervade everything. Within us, that emptiness is the soul. The great void is the Supreme Being. That is pure consciousness, that is nothingness. By becoming one with that, we can realize God and make our life truly fulfilled. Thank you.